So here's another video of the uh, two gauge pod. Uh, not an install necessarily, but how I put the piece together. If you saw the other video, part 1, I'll label this one part 2. This one I'm going to talk about the screws and the wires. So I'll start with the screws. That's the top screw. That's the bottom screw. Again, you can buy this 2-gauge pod from LC Engineering. I'll put everything, all the parts and stuff that I used in the description. So I'll start with the screws. That's an M3-0.5 tapered. About a 1/2 inch in length, if I remember right, because it doesn't have to go very far, but yeah, I believe 1/2 inch. So those are tapered. You can tell why. And then I also put in M3 washer and split washer and nut. So everything's M3, all the hardware. That one and that one, those are panhead screws. M3 panhead, right? And they have their associated M3 washer, split washer, and nut as well. But that's a panhead M3. That's a panhead M3. Again, I believe 1/2 inch. That's a panhead. That's a tapered M3, and that's a tapered M3. So 2 tapered M3s and 2 panhead screws. M3-0.5, and again, I believe 1/2 inch in length. That metal piece is at least the you can see the sticker where the sticker used to be, but the sticker, the label said it was MCC-T NS1, and then the barcode number was 04431576000. So that right there. So that's what the label said, and the barcode number. That's what the barcode number was. I found it in the lighting section of Home Depot. It was they're like 98 cents. Found it in a box that wasn't even labeled, kind of like on an end cap. But anyways, I don't know what this metal piece is used for. It had one on each side of that nut and one on each side of that nut. It had like 2 sharp metal barbs, if you will, pointing up, and I cut those barbs off, and they look like they were meant to be hammered into wood. So again, I don't know what that metal plate is for in particular, but again, that's the barcode number. That's what it said on the tag, MCC-T NS1. But yeah, I found it in the lighting section of Home Depot, and it was kind of like on an end cap in a box that wasn't even labeled. 98 cents they were charging for it, and it worked out perfectly because I was able to that big hole, and there's another big hole underneath this metal plate where that was going through. That was going through the big hole, so there was nothing to mount to. So after years of fighting this thing, and I finally found a company, the LC Engineering. They finally came out with the first gen. It's only a 2-gauge pod piece, right? I forgot how much I paid for it, but again, I'll put it in the description. But yeah, so this metal piece, I cut off those sharp pieces, right? And just use the original mounting hole, that flat piece where that screw is going through. That's the original mounting hole, part of the metal piece. And same thing with down that side. And then that's the one that I had to drill by lining it up with that hole. So line the ends up as best you can, right? So right, line it up, and then I used a center punch. And while I drilled the hole through that first after lining it up. I drilled a hole through that. Kind of used a center punch, sort of, just to kind of mark the plastic, but drilled that out just large enough to fit the M3 size screw, and drilled the hole, and it should be right around that edge right there, right? So plenty of room. Over here, there was no mounting spot for it. That's what the metal plate's for. So so that's the screw, the plate. I'll talk about this next. I used duct tape to cover the metal edge, so that the wire, when the wire goes sitting down, it's an attempt to kind of protect the wire from the metal edge, so it doesn't, chafe it. That's the attempt, at least. So I used duct tape, and it holds really well. I might put on the very edge, I might put super glue or something, I don't know. But the tape is holding really well. I cleaned it, and so anyways, I'll talk about these shaves next. So the reason why you see those shaving marks right here is because they used to look like that. So when I test fitted this really quick, I was noticing that the wire was obviously being pressed down because there's not a whole lot of room. Once this clip clips into the A-pillar frame, right, there's not a whole lot of room. So, and the wire was laying right on top of these edges right here, these plastic edges. So I didn't like that personally, so I just took a Dremel, shaved it down, right? So there, I just shaved down the whole thing. It just went all the way across on that one, and there, and that's the bottom part where this whole piece slides into the bottom part of the A-pillar frame, and then these clips. These clips right here, they go into the A-pillar frame, right? You're going to see clip holes where they pop into. So that's the reason why you see that. The wiring, I'll talk about the wiring next. So that white wire, if you saw my last video, that's the positive of the internal lighting of the gauge itself. So this one goes to the B&M 8212 gauge kit. So that's the positive of the internal lighting. The negative goes to the ground of the gauge itself. So anyways, uh, the yellow is the sense wire for the sending unit, and then this right here, the red, and then the black, that's the positive, and then the negative. And again, the for the lamp, for the internal lighting, I have it directly connected to the it's directly connected to the ground itself, so that's already taken care of. So the only thing you really need to worry about is connecting this white wire to some 12-volt source. They recommend, the instructions recommend for both the B&M and the Bosch oil pressure gauge. They recommend using the dimmer switch for the cluster panel of your cluster gauge. So there's a dimmer switch, at least I can speak for on the 1998 Toyota Tacoma. There's a dimmer switch on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, and they recommend connecting the internal lighting for the gauges to the dimmer switch, and for both the B&M and the oil pressure gauge. Here is the B&M transmission temperature gauge, 8212, and here is the Bosch FST 7001 Sport ST oil pressure gauge. So the reason why I'm using those, because I bought them a very, very long time ago. There's a long history trying to get this thing built, and I'm just now able to do it because I was finally able to find a company that makes the gauge pods. I didn't have to mess with the universal gauge pods, because you have to use a heat gun to form it to the A-Pillar plastic. And I don't know how many attempts I did. I burnt the hell out of one of them. I tried cutting one of them and then forming it, and that didn't turn out good. It was just, it's a nightmare. I'm just not, I don't know, I wasn't good with it. So anyways, so going back to the wiring though, so I'll explain the lengths that I did for the ground wires and the power wire. This right here, this is going to go to the negative of the A-Pillar frame, and this one right here, this size, it was either just a little bit smaller, the next size up was just too big. So I use this size. It was just too small to fit an M6 bolt, and that's the size of the bolt that mounts into the A-Pillar frame, the metal frame of the truck, and it's an M6. So this connector was just too small, and what I did was, and I don't really recommend doing it, do it at your own risk, but I used a drill and a drill bit just a little bit bigger just to fit an M6 screw, and slowly spun the drill until it made a hole, and it's going to twist on you. It's going to catch and twist. So hold on to it, but be very, very careful. It's dangerous. Again, I don't recommend doing it. But I'll tell you the wire lengths here soon. So there's a red wire, and then the black wire, the ground, and so the blue wire goes to the oil pressure gauge. If you see in my last video, I show you what it is. I hooked up the blue wire to the ground of the gauge itself because they're all going to the same ground, right? So the yellow wire, the yellow wire is it's just coming from the B&M. The blue wire, the thick blue wire here, that's the oil pressure sense wire, and that white wire comes down to here. I kind of basically twisty tied it and soldered it, and then now down to one wire, which is going to go to the again, the dimmer switch. So now all I have is a total of 4 wires. The positive is going to go to probably the cigarette lighter fuse. I'm going to be using a add a fuse or add a circuit. The blue wire is the sense wire for the oil pressure gauge. The yellow wire is the sense wire for the transmission temperature gauge, and the white wire is both for the transmission temperature sensor gauge and the oil pressure gauge, and I just kind of tied them into one. So there will be 4 wires going down total down the A-pillar frame area. And so I think I covered all my grounds there. I'll discuss the wire lengths next. Well, let me show you this real quick, and it'll be part of this drawing. I'll point it out. So that's the crimp that crimps the 2 ground pieces, and then that's the crimp that connects the 2 positive wires. So I'll likely make another video for the final mounting, and maybe do a quick video on the ADA circuit, but that's the ADA circuit, and very likely I'm gonna use the cigarette lighter fuse, but I'm going to see if it's switched. So in other words, you don't want to put an ADA circuit on a critical circuit system of any car, like the ECU, the airbags. Yeah, they highly recommend, makes sense. Use a cigarette lighter, or say like the radio fuse. There's another one, power, but I think power is constant 12 volts. You don't want a constant 12 volts in this case. So, and I believe the cigarette lighter is switched. So switched meaning when it's off, that cigarette lighter is not providing power. When you turn the key on, it's providing power. So I'll try to remember to show you how to do that in the next video. But that's the ADA circuit. You can buy that at I bought this at AutoZone. I don't remember how much. I think it was $10, $8, something. something like that. So anyway, so going to the wiring. So these are the ground wires going to the gauges. So ground wire to the gauges, and then one of the ground wires, again, I hooked up that blue wire from the oil pressure sensor because that's the ground wire, right? The ground connection for the transmission temperature gauge is part of this ground anyways, so I didn't need to do anything there. So that blue wire for the oil pressure gauge, I connect it directly to the ground on this, and total length is about, and that's that connector that goes to the M6, the A-Pillar gauge. That's the crimp that connects that ground wire and that ground wire, and then this single wire to that. That's the crimp. That's the crimp for the positive. And so going back to the length, it's about 12 inches long total, if I remember correctly. Definitely not that long. It could be a little bit shorter, but yeah, you don't want the wires too long, because again, there's not a whole lot of room underneath that whole assembly. You already have a bundle of wires as it is. So the positive, these are going to the positive of the gauges, right? That goes to the oil pressure gauge, and this goes to the transmission temperature gauge, and again the crimp, and then down to roughly a 3-foot length of wire. That'll be cut accordingly. Again, you don't want too much wire, but you don't want too little wire. But right now, I believe it's right around 3 feet just to start. And again, I'll do another video of the install of the A-Pillar. And then what circuit again, what circuit I decided to use to connect to. And again, just one last thing, the reason why I'm using those basically discontinued gauges, you can get the B&M transmission temperature gauge from Summit Racing or Amazon, but as far as I know, both of those gauges, the oil pressure gauge that I have and the transmission temperature gauge that I have, they're both discontinued. So the only one that you can find for sure for now, again, is the B&M 8212 from Summit Racing or even Amazon. Autometer makes one. Aquis makes one. And then a couple other manufacturers make their own gauges. These are the gauges again that I bought a very long time ago. We're talking years and years ago. That's it for now, as far as I know, as far as I can tell. The next video will be I'll show the install of the A-Pillar, and then hopefully I'll be able to have enough time tomorrow to also put this together down in the fuse box, which is located underneath that dimmer switch in the inside the cab. On the left hand side, there's a dimmer switch. Just underneath that dimmer switch, there's a fuse box, and I believe it's fuse number 25 and 26. or 24, 25, 26. I got to look in my owner's manual, see which one it is. But I think 24 is a cigarette lighter, I believe. I'll know more tomorrow, and so will you, obviously. So that's it for now. I hope this helps somebody. And what I talked about, those were the challenges that I had. Having to shave down the plastic because the wires were resting on top and they were getting smashed up against the plastic. And then the metal plate, that was a challenge because there was nothing to mount to. So anyways, so yeah. So see you on the next video. Hope this helps somebody.